Either one, either one.
All right. I'm used to calling you Carl, so I'll call you that one. So
Yeah.
you to go on your end?
Good. Rolling.
All right, cool. All right, so I guess we'll get a kickstart. Hello, everyone. I'm Ghost. Don't worry about who I used to formerly be. They're dead and gone. And I'm with my new co-host for the interview shows, Mr. Jerk Duck, also known here as the Duck Nation. Go ahead, Ducky, give yourself an intro.
Hey, Duck Nation. Glad to be back. Finally, not homeless. Look at us go. We're in a place now. Other than that, I just got a wow. My words will leave me, but
We're starting off well.
yes.
Tell them the YouTube
But yeah,
channel.
I'm here, not homeless. We have a new YouTube channel, Shit Talk, on YouTube.
Go subscribe to that.
And yeah, go subscribe, like the videos. Alexa, back to you.
All right.
Wow.
As you see, we are professionals, as you say. All right, we're here with a good friend Carl. Carl, thank you for coming. I guess to kind of start this, kind of want to open this with kind of like asking like who you are, like what do you do and stuff like that. So, Carl, who the fuck are you? All right, how about you give us that? Who are you?
I'm a meat popsicle. That's if you got the Fifth Element reference, you're my speed. That's what I got to say. If not, it's okay. So I've been around for a long time. Basically like 2020-ish Twitch politics, and before then I had other channels for video gaming. But I kind of like really enjoy consistent streaming more on the politics side. And then about, halfway through 2021, I think, someone said, "Oh, Seattle, are you from Soyattle?" And so I was like, "Hey, that's mine. I'm now Soyattle." And I continued on with some, collaborations, interviews, and little things here and there. I'm just around. But I used to work in the games industry, and because of the enormous games industry layoffs, I decided I was gonna switch careers, and now I work at a nuclear company doing software development.
Okay, so that's going to start that with the nuclear company you software development for. What got you into even doing that? Like obviously, like that's a very specific job that requires very specific skills. Where did you get that background from, and how did you get into that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I grew up right outside Oak Ridge, so I kind of always had information about nuclear all around me. Like and it wasn't all like good information. I thought that the Oak Ridge High School had no water fountains because of radiation, but actually it's because they were racist. So like they literally took
Hell
out,
yeah, Tennessee.
yeah, Tennessee. Yeah. So they took out the water fountains so that the white kids wouldn't have to share water fountains with the black kids. And here I was like naive, 17-year-old taking my SATs thinking, oh, there's no water fountains in here. Oh, of course it's Oak Ridge. It must be the radiation. It's not like I live in the South where racism is really, really strong or anything.
Yeah, that's Tennessee. I live here. I can say that this does track for Tennessee.
Yeah. What else, man? I got into I get the thorium bug. So right after I had a kid, I'm like, man, I've been a lefty for a long time. What have we really done? What have we accomplished as a movement when it comes to like actually saving the planet? And it was not looking good. I was like, what, we've got this group here in Washington, in Seattle, that voted down a carbon tax. And it wasn't the conservatives, it was the Sierra Club 350, it was all these people who are ostensibly supposed to be for the environment, for stopping climate change. And this was like my first what the fuck at leftists. Like, you know, I consider myself a leftist. I think, isn't this a fucking Hassan shirt? I saw this in my pile and I'm like, I'm gonna wear this. But I see things like 350 and Sierra Club opposing a carbon tax, and it just blew my mind. I was going insane. And so I was like, okay, look, there's got to be more serious people out there who are actually solving climate problem. And I hit on the thorium craze like 2014 or so, 2015 maybe, and that got me really rolling. And I like looked into Michael Schellenberger, who was still sane at the time. And then, I mean, some people really love him still, but I think he's gone a bit out there. And I kept rolling on the idea, like, okay, yeah, nuclear is great. I know all about it already. Why is the progressive left, why are the environmentalists against it? Oh, it's because of all sorts of crazy shit. And this goes way back into the post-World War II, where, you know, like Western progressivism was coming up as a political movement and becoming an anti-war movement. And I'm learning all this stuff about how the progressive left is solidly anti-war, and because they're anti-war, it sort of cannibalizes other actual factually true things, and it eats up things like nuclear energy as a potential solution to climate change, because no, nuclear is big business. Nuclear, which it isn't actually, it's not incredibly profitable, so nuclear is not preferred by businesses. Most of them have divested their merchant generation or their nuclear fleet entirely, and it's mostly great for stable governments that have a lot of cash that they can invest in a 50, 75, 100-year plan. Businesses don't work on that scale. It's just not possible for a business to work on a 100-year scale. And so it's better, nuclear is better for governments. You might say it's better for socialist governments. Crazy stuff. But still, the progressive American leftists don't like it because they see it as feeding into big business, centralized power, and war profiteering. And this is actually doesn't always line up quite right. So that's how I got here, and how I got to this complex sort of lefty, centrist-y position that I've got.
Okay. So you kind of bring up that, like, some of your political positions. I guess, like, since that we do kind of exist in like a political space, this is a political shit show after all. I guess I have to ask you, it's like what kind of are your outlying politics that you kind of have? Like, what are some of your core politics that you really follow and are really important to you?
Well, it is, you know, it's more individual freedom tempered by utility, or utility tempered by individual freedom. I think it's more the first. It is basically the idea of progressive liberalism, but it has to be for all of us. That's basically like my principle is like, we need freedom, but you don't get freedom at the cost of society. So like your H2 and your freaking 5,000 square foot mansion in the mountains, it's kind of cringe. But still, I agree with like the principle of freedom, but maybe there needs to be limits. Like, hey, couldn't you like live in a denser area if you're filthy, stinking rich? Couldn't you like suffer with the rest of us plebs in the middle of a city and actually learn to get along? You could still have a great life. It would just be as a part of society and not like some hermit off in the place where Bill Gates lives.
I want that Bill Gates money though. I want that good money.
I do too, and you know, I'm not gonna say that he's evil for what he does. This is sort of a consequence of the society that we're in. He once famously said, "I pay plenty of taxes," and I like to think, well, do you? Do you?
So I guess so I've known you for a hot minute, Carl. We've known each other for a bit within this sphere that we call like Twitch politics. How did you get to like such a weird kind of niche area of the internet being Twitch politics? What brought you here? How did you get here and stuff like that?
I mean, I jumped right in sort of the debate scene. I was familiar with Twitch because of the video games industry. So in the games industry, I was familiar with Twitch as a concept, as sort of a network. I built up my own channel for game streaming, some very niche games, and with a handle that didn't represent the kind of content that I wanted to do politically. And so I rebranded to Your Environment Seattle because I was doing a lot of, nuclear thorium documentary, and I wanted to bring Your Environment Seattle into the Twitch space and into this, big political energy that we had. And I wanted to engage people on nuclear, on energy, on climate, and dismantle sort of what I saw as the failings of the left. As an ostensible leftist myself, I think the people who are going to save the world, they need my help the most. And so I ought to tell them where they're wrong. And boy, is no one gonna fucking listen to you in that case. I got into some chats. I got banned a bunch of places like Bad Bunny, what's his name? Milk from CIA. I haven't been banned from Hassan, but like the ultra wacky leftist spaces, very, very ban happy. Like any policy they see that they don't agree with, you're gone. So what would that leave me? Well, the debate pervert scene. Boy, do they love me. I love to get in with, Prime Kai, Dylan, Tiberius D. Let's see, Food Shops for a minute before she stopped doing debates. Stuff, all sorts of debate spaces are very, very conducive to the kind of, the real wrangling about these topics that I like to do. And so I'm very happy to be in the debate space because the best ideas, I think, will absolutely win people over. It's really, if you speak honestly, with some passion, with some tact, with some knowledge, and actually meet them on what matters to them, you can turn minds. You can bring people over. I mean, that's one reason that I'm a Democrat, because I agree in this democratic deliberative process. I don't agree that we just all have to pick our favorite guy and then everyone's favorite guy is now the president. That seems a little, it's supposed, political representative republic. It's okay, but it's not a meritocracy to me. I don't know if that's the right way of ascribing what the GOP is, but that's what it feels like every time I get involved with GOP spaces. It is all about who you know. And maybe that's because the GOP is kind of dead in my state. But yeah, this is how I got into the meat of the debate spaces in Twitch.
I mean, obviously, like Twitch poll has kind of like definitely died off quite a bit. We don't see like an incline of new people or, bigger streamers anymore. Like, what has been kind of your experience from the beginning of your time in Twitch politics to now where it is today? Like, what's been your experience and where have you seen it kind of go?
Well, of course, the Twitch policy regime has made it very difficult to navigate as a political commentator. I mean, YouTube is sometimes worse. Like I myself have a community strike that's probably just about to expire. No, I think it did expire. But I had a community strike because I went into some experimental treatments, let's say, that are not they're not official COVID treatments, but they are very, very promising non-viral pneumonia treatments, and that's non-bacterial pneumonia treatments. And so the science behind that is good. It's all university-led research, but it's not something that is it's considered outside of the range of acceptable treatments or acceptable research into treatments, and so you get a strike. So I see like YouTube policy, Twitch policy, different social networks have their own sensitivities, and it makes it hard to navigate this. Twitch's tools, they're amazing. They let you grow your community, especially in the debate space. You can get more people in, you can communicate your fans and your audience around using raids. And back in 2020, 2021, that stuff was magic. That got a lot of people going back and forth and interacting with one another when we really needed that online interaction to sort of fill our need to organize. And it's not happening locally, and so we did it internationally on Twitch, and that's died off either from Destiny getting banned or different streamers getting banned, and the policies ratcheting up and restricting just what you're allowed to talk about on this platform.
Yeah, so you would say that like one of the biggest things that's led to like kind of politics through the internet becoming like more and more of a niche thing is because of like the deplatforming and the limiting of conversations of happening, one, because of like people just being banned for like nefarious reasons, or two, it also just being like there's a change in the TOS.
Yeah, and I know that it's possible to ban people for nefarious reasons and to like, dogpile on someone's channel, mass report, etc. I have a wish that it's not only who you know or only how big your channel is to resist that, but I am afraid that it might be like smaller channels could probably get wiped out instantly from mass reporting on both platforms because there's just not enough care and attention paid to the moderation process, really.
What do you think would have to change in the landscape of the online politics world for things to become better and things to become more kind of servable to people and to these corporations again, if that's even a possibility?
I think that once we get more people paying attention to the energy around online non-video game content, video content, like live podcasts, video podcasts that reaches the same magnitude as audio podcasts, you'll see a bit of that pickup. And it could be something as simple as, hey, if Twitch had a podcast aggregator interface that promoted to iPhone, that promoted to Anchor, that promoted to Spotify, this would absolutely blow up the sort of the discourse in terms of bringing more ears and eyes onto the platform. But I think that everyone wants to build their own walled garden. Like Amazon, they don't want to get into podcast aggregation, or they don't want to build the tools to aggregate Twitch streams into podcasts, first because that's an incredibly small slice of their business, and it doesn't feel like the typical use case. Like the typical use case is people actually interacting live with chat, and that builds community, and it sort of gives you the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it makes people really, really invested in staying and seeing everything as it happens. But that's missing out on a huge chunk of customers. YouTube, well, their tools are getting better. And I think YouTube's better positioned to do this because so many people are now watching podcasts on YouTube. They're watching video podcasts like Lex Friedman, Alex Jones and stuff. Whoever's not banned, I guess, because I forget if Alex Jones.
Yeah, Joe Rogan is still actively the biggest podcast that's on social media regularly.
Yeah. And so as long as those seem like an opportunity for Google, for Alphabet, I think that we might be able to see them come up with a podcast distribution platform eventually, but it's not going to be as successful overnight, and so there's a lot of resistance to growing the audience in that way, I think.
So as we're kind of talking on this, we kind of see like in the modern like political landscape, we kind of see a kind of a different game than we saw like kind of like the pre-COVID life that we kind of had. Like now with like conversations between like Trump versus Joe Biden, Russia v Ukraine, Israel v Palestine, like influxes of new diseases and stuff like that. Like it seems that we've seen like a heightened level of like political violence, political action, people being more like politically involved, whether that be a good or bad thing. But it definitely seems like a lot more people are very vehement about like a lot of these political problems that it didn't seem that was the case just 4 or 5 years ago. Like, why do you think right now the political landscape is like so like toxic and just an absolute like just mess and fireball?
It has been building since before you saw it. Like it is, I have seen it coming because I'm in sort of a more progressive city, and it's also a place that is very fiscally conservative. Like Washington is really it's almost a purple state. And in fact, it was until around 2017, 2018. It was evenly split in the state legislature, Republicans and Democrats. And then Democrats kind of, with the outrages of Donald Trump, the Democrats kind of wiped out the Republicans in our state legislature. But, still there's this underlying fiscal conservatism and sometimes a little bit of social conservatism that's reignited with the George Floyd protests and all of our arguments with the Seattle PD and their consent decree. And that's another historic fact, is because Seattle PD has been investigated since the Obama administration and under this consent decree, which means they have to behave better, basically, since they've been pretty heavy-handed in the past. So on one hand, that kind of keeps our protests in line until the George Floyd protests. But then after that, it is now a part of the political argument. Like, is policing bad? Is it okay? What are we allowing to happen? And I remember before George Floyd, we did have Antifa versus the fascists. Like, they'd literally come out to protest the Martin Luther King marches, and Antifa would be there to sort of harass and blockade the basically the racists, which I considered pretty based at the time. I still kind of do, but I know that particular group, like the anti-racist group, didn't survive the George Floyd reorganization locally, and it's taken a different and almost less pure turn, so that there, as Antifa as an organization locally, kind of dispersed and reformed in a way that is less pure in its mission, unfortunately.
Right. And you kind of brought up before, kind of where you said like you felt like the left had kind of like been failing in certain things. Do you think that there's been an improvement in like kind of leftist politics and action, or do you think it has still just been like there's a lot of issues within the Democratic Party, within like what leftists are kind of pushing for? Like, do you think they're still like really failing on a lot of things, or they have succeeded in other things? Like, what's kind of your position on that now?
Well, my position is that you better get involved. I saw this as a failing. The more that I organized in favor of nuclear energy, I saw that it was a sort of a constant refrain that if you're not part of our policy positions, you're just not welcome. And so the breakthrough happened when key members of a climate caucus in Washington sort of flipped to be pro-nuclear, pro all of the above solutions. And they started organizing more like-minded people. And so now we have a big faction of the Washington State Democratic Party, which is pro-nuclear and pushing for more organization, more penetration into the political space to keep our options open for addressing climate change. And it seems like almost simultaneously major politicians flipped, like Jay Inslee flipped. Joe Biden going to the White House has been all pro-nuclear. And so like when it comes to the failings of the left and the failings of progressivism, I think the answer is you need to get involved. If you think any of these, policies are weird, like you think, oh, pride is getting, like the pride parade's getting out of hand, then get involved. Organize with like-minded people that think, okay, we need freedom but we need to have limits. We need to have community standards around our behavior at these events. You can't be naked in a place where our families are expecting a family safe environment, and we need to define family safe environment. And hey, if downtown Seattle is never family safe, well, we need to make sure that that's communicated. So get involved, make sure that you are organizing locally, because all politics evidently is local, and it really works when you activate locally.
Do you think enough people are involved in their local politics, or just not enough?
Not enough. Definitely not enough. I mean, there's so few people caring about the city council here that the person who the people who are covering city council are almost entirely beholden to private interests. Like there's maybe 2 or 3 independent journalists who are actually getting into the details of Seattle Council. One of them kind of retired. Another of them is just sort of barely hanging on. And we've got another, which is The Urbanist, which is a fantastic nonprofit journalist enterprise. And I'm part of a number of organizations that support them.
The fuck are you doing here, Brandon?
Oh.
Okay. Okay. And God damn it.
That click right there, that's for your editor. You'll see the pop.
We
right
are professionals.
Yeah, professionals, by the way.
I guess we could talk about. Hey, when you're ready, let's talk about podcasting.
Yeah. True. Yeah, it's sorry about that. That threw me off.
Local
what do you think would have to change to get what do you think would have to change to get people like more involved in their local politics and just politics in general in an active way?
If you felt that when you got involved, you're actually accomplishing something, it would help. And because of that, I'm in favor of voting reform, either approval voting or ranked choice voting. They're both wonderful systems. They have different advantages here and there. I think that voting reform is one of the better ways of encouraging turnout, encouraging collaboration between candidates. Like ranked choice voting, you do not shit talk your opponents. You want to say, hey, the other 5 people, they're okay. That person over there, they're really good. If you put me first and them second, you'll be in good hands. And so it encourages like coalition building inside competition. And I think that's really encouraging as well. It gives people more of a feeling like their vote matters when they can rank their candidates.
Yeah, and my last question before I hand over to Ducky here, for him to ask the batch, is so we talked about like people getting more politically involved and stuff like that. What are kind of like your big things that you've directly been politically involved in, like in your time in being in politics? What are like some of the big things that you were actively on the ground for?
Oh shit. Okay, well it's the kiss of death. Is I door knocked for Al Gore, I door knocked for Hillary Clinton, and both of them lost in spectacularly close races. So I'm a little doomer about that. But since then, I got involved locally. I talked about 350.org. I got involved locally with that, with some of the anti-fossil fuel protesting that was happening. Built up a relationship with 350 and XR, Extinction Rebellion, with a bunch of different local lefty organizations. With a DSA candidate for Seattle City Council, with a bunch of mass transit initiatives and organizations working on mass transit, a number of different Seattle City Council races since then. I'm just always engaged locally. Every time there is something to complain to my representative about, anytime there's a bill to support, I absolutely give them public comment over the phone, leave a message with an assistant or a message audio tape. It's one of the best ways of making sure that you're pushing for the right thing to be done, is to just be in touch.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw over to Ducky here to ask some questions.
Alrighty. So you were saying that the ranked choice voting seems to like have more appeal amongst people. Like, why do you think like that is? Do they feel like they have more of like input in there to have the fallbacks?
Yeah, I think that um, basically in ranked choice voting, it feels like even if your candidate doesn't make the final two matchup, it feels like you are contributing to the balance of power, even if you don't win. And that's really powerful because it lets people sort of do more elegant bartering and discussions about like, hey, I can talk to you about my candidate, not to completely turn you, but to maybe give you a better second choice. I feel like it's more of a exchange of time and attention that feels beneficial. And coming from the games industry, I really understand like all the manipulations that you can do to make a player feel like when they give you money, they're getting something valuable in return. And so like with games, sometimes you will spend time and attention and you expect a reward in return, and or if you pay money you expect a reward in return that's actually powerful and big and important, even if it's not pay to win, hopefully. And so the same thing with ranked choice voting. If you are giving a lot to your candidate and it doesn't turn out to give anything as a result, it doesn't produce a positive movement, you feel disillusioned. You feel like you've wasted your time. And we need to change that positioning of political engagement is not wasted time just because your candidate didn't hit number one.
And with that coming to mind, like their candidate hitting number one, because we all know that it's so hard to get people to go out and vote in the first place. Um, is there anything that like we could possibly do to keep those people that are just getting like we're just getting out there to keep them from falling off when their side like loses?
Right.
Because like you said before,
It
wow,
dissuades
okay, so like
it dissuades
yeah,
participation. Yeah.
dissuades people.
Yeah. And so yeah, I like not just ranked choice voting, but going local and looking for as many local candidates as possible, really filling out the roster. And that
Mm.
does involve joining a party and joining your local caucus, talking to people about issues that matter, forming committees inside the caucus, inside your legislative district, and just going to meetings to talk about stuff like this. I mean, you see that organizing online in Discord, Twitch, and YouTube brings people together. We always had this. It's just like some people only did it once every 4 years. They're like lazy Catholics. They only go to church on Christmas. I want your religious attention to the political process. Join a party and go to meetings every month.
Okay. That's all I got right now. Alexa, did you
Nice.
want
Um. Okay. I was expecting you to go longer there.
We could go
I
nuclear, podcasting, video games, Sweet Baby Yank. I'm loaded with opinions.
Hold on,
uh
Ducky. Pitch him something.
I'm it's been a while since I've been on camera. All right.
Professionals. We're professionals, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Did you
professionals.
hear about Sweet Baby
So
Yank?
like
Okay, go ahead.
I did not. Do you want to like take us into that?
Right. So basically, and I'm going to start with what people see outwardly and how they're probably most likely to roll over it. They're going to see two things. They're going to see ESG, Vanguard, and BlackRock are ruining games and wokeifying games, and they're going to see this shady Canadian company tried to delete this kid's Steam account. Those are the two things you're going to hear. Unfortunately, the second one's true, but the first one's really false. So, there's, and I went over this on Wick TV a couple days ago, where just because a studio in California or Toronto decides to have a diverse cast and hire people to help write about that cast of characters doesn't mean that they're getting a paycheck from the United Nations to make it happen, or the Canadian government. I mean, maybe there's grants to make the work available in places like Canada and California, but it doesn't mean that those are going to be successful products. It's not like EA and Activision are falling over themselves to get this grant money. It's onesie twosie kind of operations that are very, they're not huge vertical integration. They're like one-off consultants who will try to get their services. Like the company Sweet Baby Inc. has been funded by various grants through the Canadian government, it seems, and doesn't mean that they're making a lot of giant games themselves. They're not making blockbuster games with this shadowy ESG money. They're just a couple of kids trying to write scripts that they think matter. And so, yeah, they got a couple of contracts, and the certain people on the internet are really, really mad about it. But the other thing is that, well, those people who are mad about it, they made a Steam group called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected. And of course, review bombs kind of happened, and some harassment kind of happened as a result of that. And so the people, one person, Chris Kindred, targeted the creator of that Steam group and tried to get their Steam account TOS'd and taken down, which is pretty shitty. Like, grow up, don't do shit like that. Even if your critics are awful people, you don't need to resort to causing them financial harm like that. So that's the basis. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is pretty wild that they were just outright attacking them like that. And is that pretty standard, like as far as like the grants and everything?
There are like minority grants and like different cultural projects that all sorts of different governments put together. And so like you will have like Film Board of Canada sponsors different projects. And yeah, sometimes they want to hear from First Nations people, and they want to hear about, different minority experiences in Canada. It's not the majority of their grants, but it is a component. It is like one of the available options. And so it's, I kind of feel I'm of two minds about this. Like, yeah, I would love to get grant money for my background, but it's easy enough for me to make it in the world. So I don't know. Maybe if I wasn't so successful, I would have a bigger problem with that.
Like, is it? I'm doing really bad today.
Here, I'll ask the question. So
Yeah.
one thing that you brought up that seems to be within like the cultural zeitgeist of conversation all the time is you brought up the word woke, right?
Right.
So Carl, what the fuck is woke? Like, I hear this term all the time. I hear everything's woke these days. So like, what is that? What is that? What is wokeness? What is this whole zeitgeist conversation of wokeness, so on and so forth?
Right. So woke originally was, you need to wake up, man. You need to put on the glasses, and you need to see the them. You need to see the, and we don't mean like the they thems.
The theys?
Not the they, like the they live theys. Not the they thems theys. We need to see the aliens that are controlling the system, and you got to wake up, man, and just like realize the government is out to get you, man, and capitalism is everywhere, man. And that was the original woke. And then it kind of became a mockery of it. And then it was, everyone was woke after like the mid 2000s. And then it was an insult to be woke because you were like a brainwashed lefty and you're woke. You're so woke that your brain fell out or something like that. And so this is the new wokeification, is everything that I hate is woke, or is part of some narrative or some agenda, and that's what woke has become. Woke is the antithesis to rationality. That's the new terminology.
So to kind of coax off of that, right? So we kind of see like in this modern time, we have what everyone refers to as the zeitgeist of conversations, right? So it's like everyone's a pedophile, or everyone's a Nazi, or everything is woke, or all these things. Why do you think that within today's modern like scape of like conversations, we're so we use such like loaded words, such as like, oh, I don't like this person, and so because we disagree, they're a pedophile, or because this person I disagree, they're a Nazi. Like, why do you think we do that?
Well, it is a rhetorical trick, and Short Fat Otaku told me to read Mencius Moldbug recently, and damned if I didn't see in like the first 5 or 6 pages of chapter 1, but the idea that you couldn't criticize leftism a little bit, you have to be all in. And it is this sort of maximalism of criticism that drives us to this kind of language. Oh, it's the Democrats are communists, or trans people are degenerates that are going to trans all your kids, or if you're in favor of nuclear energy, then you want to support the military industrial complex. And it is this maximalism of criticism that makes you think you can win any argument. And so it's because you think, I've got the perfect gambit to counter that position. Everything's a nail, and I'm going to hit it and hit it and hit it.
And do you think that's like an effective way to have conversations, or even like push your own political agenda?
It is extremely shallow, clickbaity, and kind of the antithesis to reaching anyone in terms of any persuasive argument. It literally turned me off of Moldbug, and I don't know if I'm gonna like struggle through the next 7 chapters of this thing after I saw like Democrats are really communists under the hood between the lines. It really dismantles any actual persuasion that can happen. And I've actually convinced people on the nuclear question. So I think I know a few things about persuasion.
Right. And then, okay, so actually onto that point, you said you convinced people of the nuclear question. What is the nuclear question?
Oh, like, should we use nuclear energy to fight climate change?
Right. And then how have you, how have you kind of convinced people with that? Like, what's your biggest ways of convincing people like, hey, we should do this?
Right. Well, there's a lot of knowledge in the advocacy community on the technique that I'm going to tell you. And it is to actually figure out where someone is with their honest feelings and criticism, and then meet them there, sort of empathize, acknowledge, and just move them to the next step. So, hey, if you think that nuclear energy is going to mutate humanity and ruin the perfect race, then, I've got to meet you there. I got to think like, oh yeah, you're going to trash the human germline with this contamination because it's so special and magical that only nuclear will do this to people. And there's a great amount of conspiracy ideas in this position, but I've got to meet you there. And I've got to say, hey, high doses of radiation actually do have this effect on the human genome. It's really, really dangerous when you have someone who ingests a contaminant and it gets into your cells and it concentrates in your bones, like plutonium will concentrate in your bones. and give you cancer. But the idea that it is a heritable condition is extremely unlikely. Like, we had to work really hard to make pink grapefruit. That's called a technique called atomic gardening. And so you put basically a radiation source in a patch where a bunch of grapefruits are growing, and one of them produced seeds that had pink flesh of the grapefruit. And that is literally where the grapefruit came from. It gave them a different trait, but that trait was survivable. And so there's very, very few cases of heritable mutations from radiation or contamination. And the counterpoint to the pink grapefruit is that of all the humans involved in the Chernobyl accident, we didn't find any heritable adverse effects in their offspring. So even though it is possible, and with a great deal of effort, we can do it to things like fruit flies and plants, it's not something that we find happens very often in actual humans. And so I find an example of where you're at, and I work to like say, hey, yes, this is possible in some cases, but actually doesn't really happen. Or I try to move you up the hill one step at a time.
Right. So, what do you think was the big thing that kind of turned people off of like nuclear energy? Do you think it was it Chernobyl? Was it like what? Like, what was the thing that like it just people were just like, oh, this nuclear thing, I don't know about it, or was it just the idea of nuclear equal, nuclear equal nuclear bomb Japan or something like that? Was it something
Right.
goofy? Like what?
Yeah, it was the original goofy, duck and cover. Like, it was the fact that the United States and Russia were ready and might still be ready to annihilate one another with bombs that made people think, if we can only stop one test or one factory, we will save the world.
Right.
And that's incredibly politically motivating, because it means you can walk out on the street and lay your body down in front of a gate somewhere, and you will save the planet. You will literally save thousands, millions, billions of people from dying. And that is such a strong call to action that to this day, you will still get people waving signs outside the Trinity test site and saying that we need to divest from all nuclear technology because it's so harmful to the planet.
Right. What do you think would have to happen, if anything, to kind of change this modern idea of nuclear energy? That way we could actually see large changes in the public eyes.
Well, it is to make it more of our core part of our education. Like, when we talk about systematic failures in technologies of the past, we are not afraid of the concept. We're not afraid of talking about bad working conditions where kids basically suffered in factories, and industrial workers losing their arms. We're not afraid of talking about steam trains, locomotives that literally exploded, or chemical factories that killed hundreds of thousands of people in Bhopal, India. We're not afraid of talking about bridges that got into a resonant frequency and collapsed and nearly killed people. We're not afraid to talk about, skyscrapers that, tilt over because they're badly constructed or because an earthquake hit. And so we need to face into historic failures of the nuclear industry, of nuclear safety, and say that happened, and this is why we have just so much documentation and so much procedure around the entire case for building a new nuclear facility, a new nuclear plant, how much you get exposed. It is a miracle of oversight, trust, and labor that we can do anything with nuclear these days, because we're so afraid of it. We're so just horrified that something could happen again in the future. And yeah, it's understanding this on a basic level that yeah, we've faced the horrors and we have, done the work to really make it safe, just like
Right.
the locomotives that used to explode.
Right. Ducky, do you have any questions? Yes.
I just had like 3. Okay, I got this. I can do this.
Professionals, by the way.
Professionals.
That's definitely going into the title, by the way. We're putting professionals, by the way, in this title of this thing.
Yeah. I'm definitely just gonna be a failure of this podcast.
Oh, brother.
I will type constantly when I'm hosting. I will be typing constantly because I'm afraid of like missing anything, and so people are like mad at me because my keyboard was too loud, and so I got a quieter keyboard so I could type while I'm debating or podcasting. But so yeah,
that's kind of where I was at, because I was juggling the mute toggle key earlier so I could type in Notepad, because I have like a very mechanically keyboard. Into the failures of podcasting, like what are some of your epic blunders, as most like streamers and podcasters like run into?
Well, I've actually worked in studio on some shows. I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 epic blunders in the production room over, like a couple, 2-3 dozen shows. I probably had 1 or 2 breaches in protocol that I shouldn't have done. I knew I was like, the minute I spoke up, I knew I'd fucked up. And usually that is like a lack of protocol, a lack of like, I don't direct the talent directly. I call out to the director and say problem, solution, and they will tell me get in there and deliver it. And so like I breached protocol at one point, and it confused the fuck out of my talent, and she almost missed a cue and kind of looked bad. And yeah, I was kind of off for a couple of weeks after that fuck up. So don't do that if you're working professionally in studio. Follow your studio decorum, follow your procedure. In personally, I've had all sorts of tech issues here and there. Like I used to be on Windows, and my voice meter would always crackle. Like I would go into a call and voice meter's at it again. I got to restart it. I got to spend 2-3 minutes figuring out if I can even reconnect to that debate before my time is up. That's the worst. When it's a tech problem, or updating software right before your podcast and then nothing works. Those are great times.
Yeah. I had to deny a restart because like literally an hour before we came on here, my computer was telling me that like an update came in, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait on that, because I know if I click that, my computer's either gonna take a super long time to restart, or everything's gonna be messed up.
Yep.
Have you ever had to on the fly like make a lot of complicated adjustments to like a program you're using while you were either streaming or doing podcasting professionally?
So it's semi-professional. I have been running the studio when we were remote broadcasting for the local Twitch meetup, and so we had a big show planned out, and it was like 90% there, but not quite 100% there. And so, I was like, while other segments are running, I was here on my second machine where the game show was coming from, and I was like frantically testing the game show while the host was was doing it. I absolutely do not recommend being that unprepared. You know, if you're doing something semi-professional or professional, make sure that you have enough time to set up. Have a tech in day, have a load in day, and don't miss out on an opportunity to have the best show you can. But the other thing that happened, because I was so focused on that, I wasn't really paying attention to the stability of the system, and it had like an overheating problem. And so I literally had to take this like DJ, rack mount thing and turn it on its side so that the video signals would stop overheating and wiping out like my side of the program. So it was a great, fun learning lesson for me, is make sure that your equipment is cool enough to operate.
Ever have to like go get extra fans?
Oh yeah. After that, I was like looking far and wide for like some cheap rack mount fans that weren't too loud, that I could put into this portable video switcher cabinet. I didn't do it like on the day. I didn't have to get a new fan or point a box fan at it, because I literally took the thing and I turned it on its side, and the convection just made it work. But yeah, box fans.
That's pretty
have
lucky.
a few box fans in your corner.
What was the biggest project you ever done as far as like this whole space goes?
Well, I mean, professionally, I worked on a couple Destiny launches. I think one of the early ones, I was, brought into one of the Bungie contract gigs where they're announcing one of the Destiny expansions, Destiny 2 expansions, and they had um, a a bit of pre-recorded content that was localized. So they were trying to do like a global simultaneous broadcast, and the people who put this together had the hardware. They had a bunch of like little Intel NUCs that would just play all the streams and stream them out through the fiber uplink to the different Twitch channels, and it was all going to work. It was all, it was theoretically it would work, but they actually needed someone with pretty much my exact skills who could do the normal broadcast tech in, get OBS to simultaneously start up or simultaneously switch scenes. And if you're big into like the very, very technical side of streaming, like you follow Nutty or EposVox, you'll know about Companion and OBS plugins and all of these remote automation scripts and plugins and ways of changing scenes at the right time. And so I made a new Companion profile to do all the automation they needed, and then I wouldn't have to like switch between all of the mini PCs to press a button. Like if there wasn't a software like BitFocus Companion, I would be doing auto hotkey to simultaneously press buttons or something like that.
So, oh my. So then, did you sort of have like a specialty skill set like on your like team, or
No,
were you just the one that?
I was just there. I was like, they were like, yeah, you're gameplay too. And what that means is like you're helping them set up the POV cameras on stage and making sure all the PCs are plugged in and where the Bungie people expect them to be when they come here to set up the live gameplay stuff. And the rest of the day, just find something to do to be helpful. And after I was, all of my seats were teched in and ready to go and set up, and the scene dressing people were working on it, I found this and I was like, I've worked in IT for 2 decades. Let me at it. I'll do it.
Nice. Okay, so you just happened to be at the right place, the right time.
Yeah.
To let your skills shine.
Yep. And you know, life is like that. Like, you know, being especially in the games industry and the entertainment industry, you just show up and give it everything you've got. You know, within reason. Like, don't get ahead of yourselves like I do sometimes. But you show up, you solve problems, you work with your team. Can't go wrong.
Right. Alexa, did you want to take it?
I mean, we are getting close to around the time when it's about wrapping this up. But I guess I'll like to kind of end it on more of a, usually when I do these things, I like to end them on like kind of a comedic note in a sense. So, Carl, outside of your biggest darkest secret, what are some pastimes that you kind of have that you enjoy doing, like hobbies and stuff like that are outside of like politics stuff, like just some like goofy fun shit that you do.
Oh shit. I mean, it's everything's political right now. I ride an electric, basically an electric motorcycle that's like one of these ratty Chinese made um, 2 kilowatt bikes that's probably not perfectly legal. So it looks like a bicycle, but it's way too powerful, and I actually wear motorcycle gear and I go 35 miles an hour on it. So that's there's there's a great
That's epic.
group
That sounds
ride.
lit.
It is. It's awesome. Look for either like a bike disco group or an electric unicycle group, and you will find people who ride all of these souped up electric bikes and electric unicycles, and it is a blast. It's a great way of getting around, and I hope that I hope Joe Brandon does something that makes these a little more legal than they are right now, because they can be dangerous. Like if you're going too fast on a bike trail, you're going to hurt someone. So it's just a matter of time before someone fucks around and then we're stuck in a hard place where I literally can't get off the island where I live without going on a bike trail on that thing.
I guess to kind of end it here, I'm Ghost. This is my co-host Ducky. He's gonna have to work on some things.
Yes.
We we have literally today just started a YouTube channel, which will be Shit Talk Podcast. Go fucking subscribe and do those things. I'm not used to shilling our shit. That's not like a thing I do. But just go subscribe. We're gonna be doing this stuff like normal. Carl, thank you for coming. Where can we find you? We'll have like 2 viewers, but like where can we find you and stuff like that?
Nice. Well, I am Soyaddle. You can find me at soyaddle.tv, twitch.tv/soyaddle. You can also find me on the Eco Modernist channel live every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Every Sunday, we're going to be talking to Matt Meyer in a couple days here, unless you don't edit too quick, and that's fine. But yeah. So this week, week of Sunday, March 17th, we're going to talk to Matt Meyer about Generation Atomic and atomic advocacy on the Eco Modernist podcast, Eco Modernist 1 on Patreon, the Eco Modernist Show.
That's fucking epic. Yeah, well, I mean, everyone, if you're listening, make sure to go watch that. That sounds really fucking epic. Well, thank you so much for coming, Carl. We really do appreciate you coming. When this ends, I'm gonna be yelling at Ducky for 30 minutes, and then and stuff like that. So, but yeah, thank you for coming, Carl. Remember, we just started this thing. We're gonna be talking to Chris Speaks actually in the coming days. Then we're gonna talk to White Narosa. Then we're gonna talk to Mike. He's a guy who works with NATO and other world embassies. Then we're gonna go talk to a therapist. Then we're gonna talk to some Nazis. Then we're gonna talk to more people. It's gonna be insane. Go subscribe to us.
Nice.
All right, that's all I have.
All right, I'm gonna say goodbye to stream. And I got the right automation to do this.
I want to speak to you about a new organization called the Eco-Modernist Society of North America. I'm here because we are in the midst of a potentially monumental ecological crisis. It is only through a new environmentalism 2.0 that progress can be made. We believe that our only hope for human advancement and even human survival is through the exponential advance of science in the service